Good morning. The Vote Checker is my moniker. You can find me on Telegram or on Twitter. And today is October 18th, 2021. And I wanted to thank you for joining us for this podcast today. And we will now start sharing our screen and get down to the bottom of what I'm going to share with you today. And the issue is phantom voters. Now, we've talked about phantom voters in the past, and I've had a lot to say about it. I'm going to start with a Fayetteville Observer article that I was allowed to publish for them in 2019. The headline was, "If we don't go after voter fraud, North Carolina elections are open for anyone to steal." And I spoke from my position at the Election Integrity Alliance, which is a national organization, because we really hoped that this story would get national coverage. And don't know if it did, but we certainly tried it through the Fayetteville Observer. And in it, we talked about, we started with our casebook example. And I'm not going to read the whole article because there's no need to. You can check it out on our website. I'll have a link to it. But the article covered it started with the issue of a young lady named Kara Biasucci. And Kara, well, she's quite a character, because in the Mark Harris, how shall I put this, in the shaft job that the Board of Elections, in cooperation with certain Democrats and rhinos, the shaft job they perpetrated on Mark Harris to get him out of his office, his duly elected congressional office. It triggered a lot of eye-opening experiences for a lot of people. Among them was yours truly, and another patriot whose eyes were opened through this was a fellow named Jim Quick. And Jim, a real shout out to Jim. He is a true patriot. I think he's working with look him up. You can find him on Facebook. I believe he's working with one of the faith-based groups that are advocating for values, for Christian values in politics. And I'm not sure which one. I don't want to get it wrong. Pretty sure it's the one that did that Salt and Light conference here a couple of weeks ago up in Surrey County. But that's for Jim to tell you his story. We love Jim. We greatly admire him and really appreciate his passion. And Jim, this research I'm about to show you started with Jim, and he did a great thing. After the Harris debacle was announced, that election officials were going to go after election officials, the Board of Elections were going to go after him, and the media had already concluded that Harris was a problem because of McRae Dallas over in Bladen County. Our reasoning of defense for that case was rejected by the Harris defense team, but we pitched them on what we thought would be the best approach, and that is to show that there was fraud in other parts of Congressional District 9, and that if they really wanted to hold a new election, they had to hold an election for every contest in that entire congressional district, which would encompass 9 counties, either in whole or in part. A couple of them were partials, to include House District 103. And what is 103? That is the district that was won by the daughter of the last Jim Crow governor in North Carolina. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think Cooper he's one of them too. But certainly the longest serving Jim Crow governor in North Carolina history, a guy named Jim Hunt, whom we affectionately call Diamond Jim. But actually it ought to be Tobacco Jim, because that's where his money came from. He was a big Wilson area tobacco magnate. Well, he had tobacco farms anyway. Jim was, when Jim got elected governor, North Carolina's governor were only allowed to serve one term. But by the time he finished his term, he could run again, because he got an amendment to the Constitution to allow him to run again. And there's a loophole in it, unlike federal law, that allowed Jim to serve as long as they weren't consecutive. He could do it again. So sure enough, he did it again. Wound up being a 16-year governor. You talk about a Jim Crow governor. He's just perfect example of what Democrats were doing back in that era with their secret police and the KKK, and then the Democrat Party was able to control North Carolina for, oh, well, some would argue they still do as far as the Attorney General's office goes, but bottom line to it is they've controlled North Carolina for a good 100 years or so. All right, so Jim's daughter was elected in House District 103, and every metric that the left or that the investigators and the academics and the people building the case against Mark Harris, every metric they used could be, the numbers were doubled in Robeson County, and they were fivefold in one little sliver of Mecklenburg County, and that was the sliver that elected Jim Hunt's daughter. She was in her, I'll be generous here, she was in her 50s, I believe, and she was running for the first time in politics for State House. And thanks to Daddy Jim, she won that race, but barely. She beat a conservative. So the legislature didn't care if she won or not, because they hate conservative. They'd rather see a Democrat get it than a conservative get it. So they didn't really contest it. And she won, I believe it was just a double-digit win. It was very close. And she took her seat. What we wanted to do was we begged and pleaded to give us time and to fund research in the area of Charlotte, House District 103, so we could show that there was more than enough fraud in that district, more than enough ballot harvesting in that district to bring her election into question. And the bottom line would be a twofer. It'd be like, okay, you're going to take out an elected congressman. You're also going to take out the daughter of a former governor of North Carolina, Jim Hunt. The daughter of Jim Hunt, her name is Rachel Hunt. You're going to take her out too. And our theory was that if they did that, if Governor Cooper, if his investigation knew, if it was started targeting Jim Hunt's daughter, it wouldn't. The state, there's no way the state board would. But if private citizens brought the evidence forward to prove that Jim Hunt's daughter was illegally elected by much the same methodology that Mark Harris was accused of being elected by, it would have been a whole different deal, because Harris won by close to 1,000 votes, and there were not enough harvested ballots in Bladen County to make a dog's difference. But there were enough harvested ballots in Mecklenburg County to unseat Rachel Hunt. That was our theory, and I think we could have proved it, but we didn't have time, and time is your enemy when you're trying to find fraud after an election. And don't forget that. It's a lot easier to find the evidence before the election, and that's what phantom voters are about, but I digress. We wanted to find those phantoms, and we were not the only ones. There were others who wanted to find phantoms too. Without getting advice from us, Jim Quick sat out there and did it. And he went around, and what I'll show you on desktop is the affidavit of Kara Biasucci, the affidavit Jim collected. Now, we have a different sort of affidavit we use when we advocate hunting for phantoms, and I'll show you that in just a few minutes, but I want to start with Kara's affidavit. Basically, Jim, they were very smart about it. We use a broader, we use a shotgun approach. Jim used a sniper rifle approach, and through data analytics, he found addresses that were problematic and went out and knocked on those doors. Now that will get you some phantoms. It won't get you as many, but it'll get you some. Now what Jim did, he went to that house and he found someone there named Heidi Piscano, who was at that address, 1304 Windmere, I think it was 1304, Windmere Hills Lane in Matthews, North Carolina. What had happened was Jim had found Kara Biasucci registered there, and I'll show you Kara's story in a minute, but I want to go ahead and show you this affidavit. Now, bottom line to it was that Heidi, she voted from that address. Heidi lived there. That was in 2018. Kara did not live there, but Kara had voted absentee from that address. So who is Kara? this lady, I don't believe, no, this is a sworn affidavit, but Heidi, this affidavit didn't say whether or not she knew Kara. It was just kind of a different kind of affidavit, not one that we designed. And I'll show you ours before we leave today, because this is really good. I mean, not toot our own horn, but it's useful. It's something we've evolved over the years, and it's a very useful affidavit. So I want to be sure you see it. Now, what I'm going to do next is play a video. First off, we referenced Mark Garrison article that Jim Quick is the magic man. He got a reporter from WBT, the Charlotte radio station, 110 AM, Mark Garrison. He pulled some strings and got somebody from New York, their sister station in New York, to go knock on Kara's door. And let me just show you the video. And I don't know how this is going to work on Facebook. I'm going to play with the camera and give you a taste of it. Meanwhile, our people watching this on later on YouTube will get the full brunt of the video, and I will have the video linked on our site as well. But I want to show you the video, and I'm going to take my phone down. Oops, sorry about that. That's bad theater. And show you my desktop. Oh, there it is. Okay, there's Kara. Now what we're going to do is play this full screen. Hopefully you can hear it.
A quiet neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York.
Hello, I'm looking for Kara Biasucci.
It's me.
23-year-old.
Hold that thought. Bad theater. Bad TV.
A quiet neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York.
Hello, I'm looking for Kara Biasucci.
It's me.
23-year-old Kara Biasucci, hoping to become a model, moved to New York several years ago from the Charlotte area. But in the last election, she apparently voted illegally in North Carolina for Dan McCready and other Democrats by using an absentee ballot with false information. On that ballot, Biasucci listed her address as Windmere Hills Lane in Matthews. But the fact is, her family sold that home. She hasn't lived there since 2013.
And when did you move out?
When I went to college in 2013.
Okay, and have you been voting in North Carolina?
I voted for the first time this year.
We sent Darius Radzis with our sister station, 1010 WENS, to question Kara Biasucci. She indicated the political state of things in North Carolina made her want to vote here. She wants to keep voting here by absentee ballot, even though she has no plans to live in North Carolina again.
And do you plan to vote next year?
Yeah, of course.
And when do you plan to move back?
I don't have any plans on moving back right now.
Someone might say that, what you did was illegal.
No, because I don't think that what I did was illegal. Otherwise, they wouldn't have let me vote there. I mean, am I mistaken?
Yes, she is mistaken, because the Board of Elections in Mecklenburg County just took her word on where she lived. Kara Biasucci, New York resident, mailed a ballot to Mecklenburg County to vote for Dan McCready and other Democrats by giving a false North Carolina address. And she's not the only one who falsely claimed to live in the 9th District.
Those of you who are seeing this on Facebook, you're not seeing the desktop, and that's a problem. I will talk through it, but what I need you to do is go find the phantoms in your neighborhood. There's a lot of them.
A quiet neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York.
Hello, I'm looking for Kara Biasucci.
It's me.
23-year-old Kara Biasucci, hoping to become a model, moved to New York several years ago from the Charlotte area. But in the last election, she apparently voted illegally in North Carolina for Dan McCready and other Democrats by using an absentee ballot with false information. On that ballot, Biasucci listed her address as Windmere Hills Lane in Matthews. But the fact is, her family sold that home. She hasn't lived there since 2013.
And when did you move out?
And this is
when I went to college in 2013.
And there's a lawsuit underway. There's multiple lawsuits about this issue that are underway all across the country. Just because it's kind of a breakdown in federal law. Actually, it's by design in federal law, state and federal law, that makes this a problem, where people get stuck on the voter roll for an inordinate amount of time, and people can move away. And that's what happened to this kid, Kara Biasucci. She left school. She left for school in 2013. She just graduated high school and went away to Savannah I know I sound like a stalker, but we did some deep investigating on her after Jim Quick found her. She went away to SCAD, a grade school in Savannah, Georgia, called the Savannah College of Art and Design. So then she went from there to New York to begin her career. Her daddy apparently was the Biasucci of NFL fame. So she wasn't no dummy kid. She had, a good deal of wealth, but her parents divorced at some point along the line. But in 2013, they sold the house that she went to when she was in high school, and the mom moved to somewhere else, away from Charlotte. I think Winston-Salem, as I recall. But anyway, the mom went one way, the dad went back to New York, and Kara went to New York to work out her career as a fashion model, whatever. You saw her pictures. She's a pretty young lady, and she went to a modeling agency and worked up there doing something, graphic arts or something, but obviously still working on the portfolio. Meanwhile, 2018 rolls around, and we don't know why. This is what I hate about these kinds of investigations. If somebody pleads guilty, you never know why. You never know why they did it. We don't know why she voted, why she decided. I would love to know what motivated her to activate her North Carolina voter registration from high school. What got her to do that? From what we could tell, she registered when she was 16. So she registered as part of the what should be illegal. It's the high school. It's a law that was put on the book, that was taken off the books in 2013, but was added back after the lawsuit to make them add it back. So the leftist lawfare made them resume this. And what it was a law that was required or enabled government schools or any school to pre-register 16-year-olds for voting. So they'd get them on the voter roll early, and then automatically the elections records would shift once the kid turns 18. And I think there's just too many problems with that, and Kara is clearly indicative of one of them. She left in 2018. She should not have registered in North Carolina. When she turned 18, by the time she was 18, she was no longer living in North Carolina. Her house was sold in North Carolina. She was not eligible to vote in North Carolina when she registered, and she was not eligible to vote when she voted, because she was not North Carolina was not her domicile. That's a legal term for the place in which you intend to go back to. I'm using poor grammar here. Sorry, Linda. But when your domicile is defined as that place you go back, you retreat to when your work is done. North Carolina law, if you look up election law and under Article 163, which is the election law records, and search on the word school teacher, and you'll see what I'm talking about, because they say a school teacher teaches in, Wake County, but lives in Johnson County. And her parents live in Johnson County, but she might have an apartment in Wake County, so she stays in Wake County. But then during the summer and on all vacations, she goes home to her parents' house. 21-year-old teacher. The law says that her domicile is her parents' house. That's what state law says, because it's where she goes when she's not otherwise encumbered there by working. But it's funny how that works, because if you substitute the word student, the law gives her superpowers, because she can choose. She can vote in Wake County or Johnson County in that situation. Kara was neither of those. Kara was a professional woman finding her way in New York and a career. She had no right to vote in North Carolina, but she did, and she got away with it because Our laws allow it. And then you have to prove intent that she intended to commit fraud. She will not be prosecuted because she didn't intend to do it. She didn't think it was illegal and she got away with it. All right, I get it. Now, the problem is Jim worked hard, bless your heart, Jim, but he worked very hard and he found Kara and he found some others. None were as good as Kara. That was the best. Kara was the phantom. And what we recommend, we want you, I mean, there is a site, I'm going to show this to you. On Telegram, for my desktop people, I will show you. It's there's America's Audit Force, and there's North Carolina Audit Force. I'm not sure. I think it might be a closed site, and I'm a little bit worried. North Carolina Audit Force. There it is. If you type in the long words North Carolina and then Audit Force, it pops up on Telegram, and you can follow that channel and see what they're doing. That is a group that is pushing for canvasses in North Carolina, and they're training people and doing a targeted canvas in certain counties that I'm not at liberty to discuss. They're there. But if you want to help them, give it a shot. They might or might not approve you because they are screening for dirty, rotten scoundrels. And if you're a dirty, rotten scoundrel, I'm hoping they will find you out and you will not be allowed to canvass for them. But if you want to, I'm going to take more of a chance on this, and I'm going to show people our way of canvassing and let anybody do it. And the record is right here that I'm training you how to do it. So if somebody if they follow this advice and they decide to do something underhanded, and they claim I told them to do it, then you'll have to just refer to this video and show the court where I showed you to do that. And there. So if you're a dirty, rotten scoundrel looking at this to figure out a way to follow my advice and get me in trouble, okay, I'll take my chances on that, because what I want the rest of you to do who are not dirty, rotten scoundrels is to check this out on our website and try it in your neighborhood. I guarantee it. I don't care how red your neighborhood is. If you search 20 houses, there's a better than 50-50 chance. Actually, if you search 10 houses, there's a better than 50-50 chance you will find at least one person at one of those houses who does not belong there. Now, it may be legal, it may be illegal. It may be like Kara, who clearly was not legal, or it may be like somebody else's daughter who, well, we found this woman in Cumberland County who she registered doing high school. She graduated high school. She went to Greensboro, went to school in Guilford County, met a man, fell in love, got married, changed her last name, took her husband's last name, and settled in Greensboro area and began her life. Fast forward from the time she registered, 26 years, she was still on the voter rolls in Cumberland County under her old name. She'd never voted there. She'd never committed fraud, but she was a phantom. What she was not was a phantom voter. She didn't vote illegally, but getting either one of these people off the voter rolls is a good thing. So what we ask you to do, because neither in both cases, in Kara's case, where if you could read her mind when she was 16 years old, she wasn't intending to commit fraud. If you could read her mind in 2018 when she voted, I don't think she was intending to commit fraud. I think she just did it because she could. It's a fact. It's a fun fact that federal law, there is no intent. There's no intent clause. So just doing it you could be prosecuted under federal law. And I tried to get a hold of Kara to say, don't vote again, because she thought she could get away with it. She told the reporter that she was going to do it again. And thankfully, somebody got to her and said, don't do it. Now you know better. And if you do it now, they can prosecute you in North Carolina for intent to commit fraud. So Kara, I didn't give her that legal advice, but I would have if I could have gotten her to listen to me, because I don't want her to commit fraud. I'm not trying to embarrass her either, but this is what happens when the opportunity is there and innocent people, she gets activated. I wish, Kara, if you're out there, I wish you would get a hold of me and let's do an interview, because Kara, we have a couple of theories. Somebody got her wound up. That was a national election, that Harris race was, because Harris had, he's a traditional values kind of guy, and he'd said some traditional values. And, you know, the guy's a pastor, and his sermons are recorded on video. So some, you know, some scoundrel or whatever we call these people, dirty, rotten scoundrel, went through and just listened and endured all of Mark Harris's great sermons, Baptist sermons. And man, the Baptists, give them a shot, guys. If you're not a church kind of person, give them a shot. They, a good Baptist church is all about Jesus, as am I. So if you give a Baptist church, okay, Dave, I want to answer that question, but not yet. How many times have you heard anyone in North Carolina being charged with voter fraud? Any of the Democrats? All right, I want to touch that issue. We may have to do it another day because Dave raises a great question. That's a great rabbit trail. And go to our website, Voter Integrity Project, and type in the words Pasco Parker, and you'll see an answer to that. Okay, Mark Harris, he preached a lot of sermons, and one of them was something about marriage being between a man and a woman. Mark Harris was really big on the marriage amendment back in 2012. I mean, the guy's an open book. You knew where he stood. He was traditional values and biblical traditional values. So the left went after him, and they made commercials to smear him using their, you know, homo baiting kind of language. And I think there was some feminist baiting that went in there too. It's all about critical race theory. Critical theory is you create these sores, especially among college educated kids, who they take these courses in women's studies or gay and lesbian studies or Black studies, Latino studies, and they hear the arguments that make them hate whitey. And then they move on, they graduate college and say, oh, well, that didn't affect me. I can still work with men or with white people or with Hispanics or whatever. You know, they could still do that. And but then when the Mark Harris race came up, somebody got a message to Kara somehow. I don't know how, I don't know who, but perhaps it was this issue, the traditional values of Harris. Perhaps she knew Harris from 2012 and hated him from high school. But for some reason, she saw that Harris was on the ticket and voted absentee against Harris while she lived in New York. Why? Because she could. She was still in the voter roll, you know, and she, as she said, I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but it was something along the lines of, well, it can't be illegal because otherwise I wouldn't have gotten away with it, was kind of her, I'm paraphrasing it. But, you know, she didn't think it was illegal because she got away with it. And no, that's not the way it works. You know, you can commit insurance fraud too, but, you know, you get away with it doesn't mean that you succeeded. It's just that DAs don't, certain DAs don't prosecute insurance fraud. They just don't do it. Sorry, I shouldn't be putting that out here on YouTube, but having been a former claims adjuster, I can tell you it's true that certain DAs just won't touch it. So insurance companies have to deal with it. We all have to deal with it. And insurance companies have to work toward preventing it, but just, it is what it is. It's hard to prosecute it. And vote fraud is much the same way, to answer David's question, but we'll get more into detail with it on another podcast, another day. Now, what we have on our site, yeah, I love Jim Quick. Jim, don't get me wrong, Jim, but had we designed his questionnaire, it would have been different, because he didn't quite know what he's looking for. And the scariest thing to do when you canvass is start asking people if they voted in their district. People will lie about that. It is not worth asking the question because people will lie. It's one of those self-reporting biases. Have you ever driven drunk? Have you ever beaten your spouse? Have you ever been cruel to an animal? Have you ever yelled at your child? Well, that one, people might actually admit on that one. Have you ever slapped your child? Yeah, just things like that people are never going to, oh, are you registered to vote? People lie about that. Do you vote? People definitely lie about that. Social science research has proven it. So Jim's questionnaire was a little flawed, and we are going to use a different one. We use that same address, 1304 Windermere, Wyndermere. And I'm going to show you how it works. You go to our website, voterintegrityproject.com, And we have, if you scroll down on the right, you'll see another award-winning drawing by Mark Peterson. No, I'm sorry, it's a caricature by Mark Peterson, the award-winning artist. Got to get it right. It said, find who's voting from your NC address. It's called the Phantom Voter Project. You click that image and it pops open our VR Cleaner, which is a tool designed by the brains of the operation. Now, I'm showing people, if you're on Facebook with this, sorry, but what we do on the YouTube that you could watch later if you want to get into this and see it, is that you have certain things you have to put in on the search, on the table that comes up that you search. The only required field is the county. So if you just type in the first letter, it brings you to it, type it again, and I'm hitting MMMM until I get to Mecklenburg. Hit the tab key and I'm there. I got Mecklenburg. Now, what we found is that if you type in the street number and the street name, sometimes it doesn't work, but we'll try it on this case. It was 1304 Windmere, W-Y-N-D-M-E-R-E. Let me check that spelling before I look for it one more time. Yes, W-Y-N-D-M-E-R-E. And I'm going to search for it now. It says submit query after you enter that information. It'll probably come up and says, sorry, none found. Or maybe it'll hit it. Ah, there's two of them. Well, how about that? Yeah, wow. Score. This is really weird. It's the same address. I've never seen this before. And it actually gives us two addresses at that registration. One of them says there's one voter at it, and the other says there's 3 voters at it. A little more information in the second one because it says precinct 233. I'm going to click on both. I have a feeling one of these is Kara. Now, if you highlight one of them, it says click on the address that you want to search on. Sorry about the grammar there. Then click inquire. It should say, for you English teachers out there, it should say click on the address on which you want to search. Then click inquire, but it says the one you want to search on. Just say that for my people. So it says then click inquire. So we're going to hit that first one and hit inquire and see if Kara's name pops up. I bet it does. I wonder why this is here. Ooh, wow. Okay, it combined them all. All right. Interestingly enough, oh wow. D. Oh, that's sad. Okay. It has 4 people at that address, 3 active voters and 1 deceased voter, John Biasucci. My deepest sympathies to the Biasucci family. Didn't realize he passed away. At least these voter rolls suggest it. So, and remember who Heidi Piscano was. Switch back over to that affidavit that Jim Quick pulled up. Heidi actually signed that affidavit. So what you would have done with our product is you would have, it says click, if you read the instructions on the screen down on the square, after you open this page, it says click the address verification button to create a PDF. And the PDF used to open on a new tab. Oh, here we go. Good, you fixed it. All right, and it's kind of lengthy. We're going to change it, but it says it's almost as if you mailed it to them. We don't like people mailing these. It's much better if you knock on their door and talk with them. But it's, if you read the letter, I'm going to read it to you and tell you what it says, but I would beg you not to read it to the person at the door. Instead, use your own language. It says, dear resident, we could really use your help in making sure our voter rolls are as accurate as possible before the next election. By we, I mean volunteers from Voter Integrity Project NC, a nonpartisan, nonprofit election watchdog organization that works for open and honest elections. Now, according to North Carolina voter rolls, 2 or more people are registered to vote from your address. Please take a moment to review those names shown below. If the names are correct, then take no further action. But with so many people moving in and out of the state, the list could also show grown-up children or even total strangers who are voting at your address. Without your input, such voters could use your address for up to 8 years. All of that is true, by the way. Okay, the last paragraph says, So if the names are not correct, please complete the statement of facts, which is below, and either hand it back to the in-person volunteer or return this completed form using the enclosed postage paid envelope. Also, don't forget to sign it. The witness part is optional, but feel free to call us, and I give our number, or contact the State Board of Elections, and I give their number, if you have any questions or concerns about this entire process. It's perfectly legal, and we don't mind the state board knowing what we're doing on this because it is perfectly legal. We're not harassing voters. The questionnaire is not asking them if they voted. It's just checking their residency, and it's gathering what the courts call personalized information. Now, if you want to know more about that, you have to go to our website and look at the link that I'll have to the Fayetteville Observer article that I wrote in 2019 that I referenced at the very beginning of this podcast, because the personalized information is very important. Now, I'm sorry, John was denied. He wasn't deceased. My bad. Okay. Yeah, I guess denied is RD. We're going to go back and look at that again. So what it creates is a file that has the name of the person currently living there, and it says, I currently own or reside at, and the address, 1304 Windmere Hills Lane, Matthews, North Carolina, and have owned / lived here for approximately X months and X years. You fill in the blanks. I have read this document, and I hereby certify that the information I've given is true and accurate to the best of my knowledge under penalty of perjury. It's a mild affidavit. It's not a sworn affidavit, but I've got friends who practice in federal court, and they said this is good enough for probable cause. It's good enough. It's not a sworn affidavit, which will be stronger, but sworn affidavits are icky. They're scary, and people get nervous when you start talking about sworn affidavits because it makes them think they're in trouble, and we don't want to make anybody think they're in trouble, and because they're not. You're just giving me the information on who lives here and who doesn't. And what they do on this form is they update status on these voters. So John Biasucci denied. I would check that block because it has a code over there, and you can say R, voter resides at this address, or you can say M, voter moved to an unknown address, K, voter moved to a known address, U, voter is unknown to resident, T, voter is temporarily away but should remain at this address, Peace Corps, military, college, etc. Then D for deceased, which is what confused me about Biasucci, John Biasucci. He's D, the state coded him D for denied, and there's no reason that the occupants of that house would know John. Maybe they would know, and maybe it was a personal sale of Italian, Biasucci and Toscano. Maybe they knew each other, but maybe not. Maybe it's just one of those things where the realtor was racially profiling the neighborhood and only letting Italians live there. I'm joking, by the way. My mother's side of the family, Gandolfo, has a great deal of Italian in them. So there. If you're gonna call me a racist, I got something to say to you in Italian. Okay. So anyway, John Biasucci denied. So this person, Heidi Piscano, may say, who knows what she'd say about these three other people at her address. She is the voter. She put an R there by her name. For John Biasucci, she might put unknown or moved to an unknown address because she sold the house or she bought the house from him. He moved away. I don't know where he lives. She might have done that. Now, as far as Bryson and Lee Piscano, who are also at that address, maybe Lee is the college kid and is away temporarily, or maybe Lee has gone off and gotten hitched and changed her name and moved to, it's now Lee Piscano or Piscano, that's it, Piscano, Pisacano. And I apologize for mispronouncing your name, Heidi and Lee and Bryson. Piscano and Biasucci. I think I got that one right. Anyway, I don't mean to interpret anyone's name wrong. Please forgive me. But anyway, the point is they would update the status. Maybe the kid moved away and got married and is living in Greensboro under a different last name and voting there. But these are phantoms. And at this address, we find John Biasucci a phantom. Now I want to go back just for fun and look at the other address, back one on the VR retrieval. I'm going to show you one more thing here before I roll out of here. Okay, the one. Okay, the 1 and 3. I hit the 1 and got 4. So I think I know what's going to happen. It's going to, yeah, it gives me those same 4 voters. I noticed Kara is no longer on the roll at this address. So yay for Kara. I mean, remove the temptation by getting off the roll. Probably somebody got Kara and said, look, your best bet is to request to be removed. And if anybody wants to go in Mecklenburg County and look at the record, they can see why she was removed. My guess is it was at her own request. All right, now let me go back to the home screen of our phantom voter screen, or the VR cleanser as it's called. And I'm going to do one more thing on Windmere Lane. First we hit the M. You can just scroll down to your county. Somebody watching, Larry, if you're still watching, give me your street name and I will look up your street and tell me your county too, if you're watching. Available to do that. I would. Anybody watching, I see a couple people up there watching right now. So whoever wants to give me your street name, I'll look up your address and run a phantom check at your address. Anybody? I'm not seeing it yet, so maybe they can't hear me or they're away. I'm just looking to see if we get anything. I'm stalling, but not seeing anything. I'm going to go to my old address. No, I'm not. I don't want to invade the privacy of the people who bought my house. I'm gonna go to Mecklenburg and go to Windmere Lane again. Only this time, I'm not going to put a street name. W-Y-N-D. So Windmere and Mecklenburg. That's all you got to do. Don't put lane, road, drive. Just type the street name. And in doing that, you'll get a much broader net. And I'm hoping to change this software where we can actually get it to where it will just cast that fuzzy match. But the way to induce a fuzzy match on this is to just put in the name of the street and leave it. And what you get out of that is a very magical thing. Magical thing. Yeah, that's a magical thing. You get every address. I'll start, I guess 1304 is on the corner. You get every address on that street. And this is what I would like you to do. If you live in that area, for example, to go get this, pull this record up. And as you look at the screen, it's amazing. At 1304, there is one. It says one active voter there. This is strange. The number of voters is 1. Okay, and then also 3 at that same address. That's an anomaly. That's very strange. Because when I hit on the 1, it showed me all 4. And on the 3, it showed me 3 of the 4 minus John Biasucci. So it's very strange. But the bottom line to it is I've got another address on there. I've got several that have 3. Now, what's the deal with 3 people living at an address? The deal is I found phantoms in my own neighborhood with 2 people at the address. So it's no, there's no rhyme or reason to this. You should look at 2 or more and look at them. Just go down your street and look at all of them. So now at 1307 Windmere, I click on the address, I make the inquiry, I inquire, and I've got 3 people all with the same last name, Andrew Seelig, Michael Seelig, and Deborah Seelig. They're all active voters. That's 3 adults registered to vote from that same address. Now, how might this be legal? Any number of ways that would be legal, and it probably is. You could go knock on their door, but there's a funny thing, because sometimes in situations like this, we've found in the past, the most famous was a group called NC Purge, P-I-R-G. Their guy was arrested and prosecuted for, I don't know if he's prosecuted, but he was caught giving people children. So let's suppose Andrew and Deborah Seelig are grown-ups. Let's say they're in their 40s or 50s and they're empty nesters, maybe 50s. It's public information. Someone looks it up on the rolls and figures out. It takes some research. You got to know what you're doing. But you go in there and you go, oh, okay, these people are 40 and 50. They're the people, let's just say they're 50 years old. I'm going to give them a 20-year-old, and I'm going to name their 20-year-old Michael. And I'm just going to put it on the rolls and register it illegally and see what happens. And, if it disappears, usually when they do the fake ones, they'll say Andrew and use a different middle initial or something like that. But sometimes they give a different name, or they say Andrew Jr. or something like that. but they do that. So just because there's 3 doesn't mean that this is all legal. Oh, 3 with the last name doesn't mean they're all legal. But it could mean that. Now, then you produce the form, and they all voted in 2020, November 3rd, 2020. It may be that the child is away at college. It may be the child just turned 18 and still living at the house. Or it may be the child is living in New York, is, got his own career, and parents called and said, hey, you need to vote. There's a creep down here and I need you to vote. Or, hey, maybe these people are Republicans. Hey, I need you to vote for Donald Trump. I need your vote to count. You never know what's going on. And someone asked earlier, have you ever gotten Democrats? We've caught both. Prosecution's a whole nother matter. We'll discuss another day. But to go back to that page, that's Piscano. Let me go back to the home screen one more time, then we'll walk it away. I found, shoot, I didn't even do that. I'm going to go away because if I can find it, Latimer Road, Latimer, Latimer, the very first house I found with 2 registered voters at it, I popped it up and it had 2 last names, and I think they've cleaned it up, but I'm going to hit the first one I see with 2 and see if it pops up. The funny thing was, it was just 2 registered voters and it had 2 last names. So I thought, what the heck? And I went over there and canvassed in their house. I talked to them at the door. You can do that, You can go to the door and ask them what's going on. Suddenly, Pier 5 Latimer Road. I'm going to inquire. And I went ahead. Now I read to you, here we go. It's the same address. Now I read to you what I said earlier. When you look at the canvas sheet, it has the gist of it. What's better is if you read it and you practice in front of a mirror, just using your own words. And those words are, in effect, this. Hi, not hi, I'm your neighbor. I live around the corner. I'm with a citizen watchdog group, election watchdog group, I should say. And we want to make sure the voter rolls are as accurate as they can be before the next election. So would you mind looking at this clipboard to tell me if these people look right to you as registered voters at your house? And when I say, would you mind looking at this clipboard, they automatically look at the clipboard. We print these pieces of paper off. We're trying to get it where it can be done on a tablet. We're not there yet. But the bottom line to it is these are pieces of paper. You have to print them off. Now, when I went to that house, it was this may not have been the house, but I think it was. I have to go check my records. It was Naomi Logan and Travis Bailey. I could go look at the address. I'll do it later. This may not have been the same address, but you'll notice it's 2 different last names. Nothing wrong with that. People live together and register to vote together. Well, biblically, there's something wrong with it, but as far as legally in the eyes of the law, this render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and according to Caesar, this is not illegal. So do you go there? Do you canvass? Yeah, I would canvass just innocently. Just tell them, hey, I'm your neighbor. If you are the neighbor. If you're not the neighbor, say, hey, I'm a volunteer with an election watchdog group. And our forms use our name, but you could, because we want you to mail this back to us, but some people use their own forms because they don't want us to have it. And they don't want to be tainted with us or, all that political who gets credit crap. But the bottom line is go in there with your form and just explain to them, look them in the eye and say, I'm your neighbor. The key line is, we want to make sure our election rolls are as accurate as possible before the next election. Now, there's nothing wrong with those words. It is truthful. Am I looking for voter fraud in 2020? I'm not looking for it, but if I find it, groovy. You could find it, and maybe you are looking for it. Maybe in your heart, that's why you're doing this. I know that's why. Well, never mind. The point is, you may be looking for it, but you don't have to volunteer that information. I mean, in the book of Exodus, Moses's point was, we're going to take 6,000, how many people? 600,000? I think 600,000. Going to take all these people out of Egypt, and it's going to put a hurting on your economy. It's going to destroy your economy, in fact, because we're leaving and we're the ones doing all the work. So we're leaving. That's the book of Exodus. But he didn't go to Pharaoh and say that. He said, hey, we just want to go out in the woods for 3 days and do worship. Well, we got to take everything we have, everything, our livestock, our women, our children. He didn't tell them what he was doing. And you don't have to go and tell these people, hey, I'm looking to see if you're a dirty, rotten, disgusting, illegal voter from 2020 who may have tried to steal our election. So did you cheat? Did you cheat? Tell me. Let's not do that. Instead, let's just look forward. Look at the voter rolls, get as accurate a voter roll as possible. And there's another thing about it. We're not scrubbing the voter rolls. We're not purging the voter rolls. We're not, and we're not looking for voter fraud. We are just looking for the most accurate voter rolls we can possibly get before the 2020 election. We are preventing the temptation that Kara Biasucci had when her daddy or someone, I don't want to impugn anybody, when somebody contacted her or got to her somehow that made her realize, hey, wait, I'm still registered to vote in Mecklenburg County. If that had not been the case, Kara may not have voted. Kara, she's one person, one vote. What difference does it make? Difference is Rachel Hunt won by, I think it was 49 votes. That's a big difference. One vote. It's only 49, but how many more Kara Biasucci's were there in Mecklenburg County for Rachel to win? Now we have city council races. We had some last week. I have not checked. I have not asked anyone to check, but I'm curious how many of them were decided by less than 10 votes, because a lot of them are in these city council races, municipal races. I guarantee you some of them will be decided by less than 10 votes in November. And quite often what happens, in fact, a couple of years ago, there were 5 races that ended in a tie, and they recounted and recounted and recounted, and they tossed a coin to see who was it, who won. And that's, or cut a deck of cards or something. They had to, it was just a random thing. Okay, guys, I know you're both good candidates. You both ran great campaigns, but you both can't win. And that's how they resolved that race. So one vote matters a great deal in some situations, certainly in a close election. What we recommend you do, what we beg you to do, what we plead with you to do is get out there and canvass. Don't just be a keyboard commando and hit the like button. Get out there and canvass. Go knock on doors, follow safe distancing rules, put a mask on if you feel like it, and knock on the door, then step back about 6, maybe 10 feet from the door and have your clipboard with you with these things printed off. Now, as we look at that street, yeah, okay, as I'm going to finish the story at this one address. I thought it was 304, but I have to check later. But at one address, maybe this one, the voter, the male told me he was a British national and that he was not a legal, he couldn't vote. He looked at the clipboard, there were 2 people on it, and he was not one of them. He said, well, I don't know who that person is, and that's my girlfriend. So one of them was his girlfriend and the other was him. And he said, I don't know who this other person is. I said, don't. I said, and are you registered to vote? And he said, no. I said, why not? And, you know, by the way, it'd be a nice touch to have a voter registration form with you when you do this. I asked him, why are you not registered? He goes, I'm not a U.S. citizen. I'm a British national. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, thank you for not voting, because that would be illegal. So he was a nice guy. And he gave me the information, signed the form, and gave me the evidence that the woman who was at that address was not a legal voter at that address. Had she voted in 2020? No. Actually, I think I might have done the canvass before the election, actually, but she didn't vote. Instead, she's been removed from the voter rolls, I think. And I think he is Travis, so I'm really curious. He must have gotten his citizenship. So at any rate, the point is that what you're finding is people who are illegally registered, either by hook or by accident or on purpose. Some of them will vote, some of them have voted illegally, and some of them will vote illegally. They might not even know it. They might know it. They might be college kids who think it's their privilege to vote at either place and actually. It is their privilege. They get super rights that none of us get. If you own property in two cities, you can't choose your domicile, but little pampered college kids can. And that's a whole nother issue we'll go over some other day. But the fact is, by collecting these Canvas forms, you can, let's take the Seligs, for example. I'll go back to Biasucci's, because I closed that screen. The Canvas forms are the key to everything. If you can get the people to sign them. See, all you have without a Canvas form is you got a golly gee whiz, look at that. I got 4 people registered to vote at this one address. And then some huckster will say, see, that proves fraud. I shouldn't call them hucksters. People who mean well might say that too, because data does not prove fraud. Showing that 4 people are registered at an address does not prove anything. It just proves, well, it does, proves that 4 people are registered at a certain address, but it doesn't imply fraud. It doesn't prove it. The only thing that proves it is evidence, and data is not evidence. Remember, numbers don't stand up in court. People stand up in court. So you have to get people. You have to get affidavits or show that it's a vacant lot or something like that. And I guarantee you 305 Latimer Road is not a vacant lot. Now I want to tell you at the bottom of this thing, after it's signed, on the bottom of the form, it says, has something else there. And it's not working for that one. I'm wondering why. Let me check one more. See if we have a problem here with the Seligs. See what theirs is up to. Yeah, for some reason in Biasucci it didn't do it. It might be because it was 2 combined files, but in the Selig one, down at the bottom, it shows the county, the precinct, the congressional district, the state house district, and state senate district. Why this matters is because if you hold on to this data, you hold on to these forms and come to one of our boot camps, we will explain to you why. But at the very least, I would like you to send me your signed forms and we will collate them. I would rather, that's what I'd rather you do, is send them to us. But you're well within your means to just, what I would accept is if you'd scan a copy and send us a scanned copy and keep the original for yourself right there in your neighborhood. You might need it because House District 103, where Andrew Selig lives, let's suppose his child is Michael, and Michael has gone away, gone into the Army, got married, got hitched, and has registered to vote in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And you don't even know he's registered to vote in North Carolina, but he's active just because of a quirk in the voter laws that's actually is designed that way. He's an active voter in North Carolina. So what do? This form may come in handy. He may decide to vote here because he can. He may vote in both places because he can. He's on the voter roll in both places. The odds of getting caught under current administration, federal government, the odds of getting caught and prosecuted are none. The odds of getting caught and prosecuted are even slimmer, but the odds of even getting caught are slim unless some activist group finds it. And you are the activist group if you collect these documents. So I would say, I wanted to keep this short and I made it long anyway. I wanted to walk you through this form and show you how it works and tell you what to do with these when you collect them. Now people go, well, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? What difference does it make? The difference is you collect enough of these. The next election rolls around and let's say Rachel Hunt wins her state house race by 24 votes. And you look through your file and you show 30 or 40 people who voted. You look through, see these people who don't live there, and then you see if they voted in the next election because you have these pieces of paper. Ultimately, we're going to get them off the roll. As I told the British National, I said, if you will sign this, I will help get these people off the roll. It's not very easy, but I will notify the election officials. And if you sign it, it makes it a much more, it makes it a document that they're more liable to respond to. They don't have to, but they could. And that was how I convinced him to sign it. He was okay with it. He says, if you want to help me get these people off the roll, I can do it maybe. And we'll have to notify election officials and show them. And maybe they will, maybe they won't. If they if they want, we could file a challenge because it's good enough evidence for a challenge. Or let's say some good guy loses to Hunt by 12 votes, and you've got 20 of these things. That good guy could file a protest and protest the election. So this can be some very dynamite evidence to be used in a future endeavor if you have the evidence in advance. If you try and get it after the fact, it's rather difficult to collect. It's just too hard. People are on edge, and you're talking about the next election. The dust hasn't even dried on the last election. Why are you really here? And they're on guard, so really what this is about is voter list maintenance. There may be some benefit if there's a close election and fraud is a factor. There may be, and you would have evidence here of fraud in that situation. That's why we say collect these things, go become a phantom voter hunter, phantom hunter. Go volunteer, get a friend, get a couple of friends. We'll do a Zoom call if you want to go over it some more. It's pretty easy to do. And hopefully this tape, if you go to our website and look at this video, it'll walk you through it. And if anyone will send me some questions on this thread, I'll be happy to get to them. Okay, I'm going to halt the screen share on this and stay on Facebook to answer questions. We're going to stop the recording, and this is Vote Checker out of here.